So I want to thank everybody to come into our first Lunch and Learn for this session or for this year, for the season. For those who don't know who I am, my name is Patty Schramm. I'm the Parent Resource Trainer Coordinator for the Salt Talk series. So this whole month, we are looking at transition. It's the best way we can kick off our season. It's just look at transition. What do we need to know? What organizations do we need to make contact with? And there's so many moving parts to transition. It can get very, very overwhelming for parents in general. So last week we had talked about the DD services a little bit and had a really nice presentation by the Warren County Board of Developmental Disabilities, which is out there on YouTube if you wanted to revisit it. But today we are looking at transition and the Disability Benefits 101. There are a lot of resources out there that can be very helpful for this period of time. And so we invited Tammy Disney. She's a benefit analysis coordinator for the Montgomery County Board of DD, which would be the Developmental Disability Board. So I'm going to turn it over to Tammy to get started, because I know these topics can cause a lot of questions. If you have questions as we go on, feel free to put them in the chat. And Tammy, do you want us to let you know when a question appears, or do you want to hold them to the end?
Yeah, you can let me know as they appear.
Okay.
That would be fine.
All right, very good. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Tammy, and let you start with your presentation, which we see up on the screen. It's all good.
Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. Just a little bit about me. I have been working for the county board, the Developmental Disability Services, for 34 years. So I've been around for a while and have worked with many different individuals. And what I've been doing for about the last 7 years is working about benefits. And so that is helping individuals with their Social Security, their Medicaid, Medicare, and trying to make sure that everybody's getting the benefits that everybody can be eligible for. And so as transition happens and the kids get to graduate, or even as they turn 18, there are some benefits that they can be eligible for. And so, of course, my agency is an agency that we do some follow along with individuals after they graduate and help them with getting jobs or getting some sort of rehabilitation or vocational services. So that's basically the first part of what I wanted to say. Let me go to the next page. So I'm going to go over the Disability Benefits 101 online tool. And so this is something that I believe the state did, and they're very proud of it. And so they're wanting to get as many people to use it as possible. It has a lot of information. And so I'm just going to give you a brief overview, and then hopefully you'll be able to at some point log onto your own computers and look into this website. So under the DB 101 homepage, there's short videos about SSI, SSDI, working in benefits, the stable accounts, student earned income exclusion for SSI, the Medicaid buy-in for workers with disabilities, which is also called the MBIWD program, the Medicaid waiver program, and work incentives for SSI and SSDI. So that's a lot of information, but something that you may go in there and look at, and then a week later want to look at a different topic. So use this online tool as much as you can. You can also set up a MyDB 101 account, which allows you to log in and then save your favorites so that you can go back and get them later quickly, or you can actually use some of the calculators, which will tell you like how much you can expect for benefits once you put in like what your income is, your unearned income, your earned income, and it does do some calculations. And so you can save those if you have a MyDB 101 account. And of course, it's password protected, and that so that you can then get into it later. All right, so it allows you to log in with a password, allows you to save items of interest to you, allows you to save information that you have put into the website, and you can save your benefits work estimator sessions. You can save your school and work estimator sessions, and you can save your MBIWD estimator sessions. So these are sessions that have a calculator attached to it, which is really good because then you can look at the amounts and figure out how much your benefits may be. So some of the things, so there's a home page, and I'm going to go ahead and log into the DB 101. Okay. And so basically all I did was put in DB 101 Ohio, and it comes up. And this is the home page. And so what it shows you is, it says, what benefits do I get? This is information. You just click on the arrows, and it gives you all the information that you can look at. It talks about SSI, talks about benefits planning.
We can't see the home page. You'll have to probably share new screen or something, so we can see. Or just hit under the share screen. It should give you the option to share new screen, or you can just close that one. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you're there.
Okay. All right. So let me go back. So basically you put in the web up with the browser DB 101 Ohio. A lot of states have this type of service. So ours is DB 101, and it is geared toward Ohio. And it just gives you information about what benefits do I get. It gives you information about SSI, SSDI. If you log down a little bit, it will say benefits planning query. And I'm going to go over some of these things too, but I just want to give you guys a brief overview. My Social Security online account, which that's something that Social Security wants everybody to have, even people that don't have disabilities. Everybody who's paying into Social Security should have a My Social Security online account. Talks about Medicare, talks about state benefits and Medicaid. So that's the home screen. Then they also have this, what's My DB 101. This is where you can sign in, and then you can then save your favorites, and you can save your calculators. So there will be your favorites, and then it has your calculators. It's really, really easy, pretty interactive. You would just go into, if you wanted to do your benefits and work estimator, you would just open it up. See if I can get it to open. And it says get started. And then if you get started, and then it will give you, like, put in what your household information is, the month you were born, talks about, do you have a disability, and then you continue. And then it gives you where you could put in let me continue. All right. It's not going to let you continue unless you put all the information. So basically then you would go in there and put in how much your unearned income is, how much your earned income is, and it would then tell you what your SSI benefit will be for the month. So that's something that you can use when somebody's working and they're getting SSI, and because SSI goes up and down depending on how much earned income and unearned income the person has. It also has over on the side, once you go into, so there's kind of a few ways to do that. Because if you say start a new session, on the side over here, it gives you like SSI, SSDI, CDB, food assistance, Medicaid. So everything that's blue and underlined is something that you can open up, and it'll give you more information about all of that stuff, which becomes very, very helpful. All right. So it also gives you a glossary. And this has like all of the terms that somebody may have, that like 1619A, 1619B, which are Medicaid, Social Security and Medicaid titles. Nobody knows that stuff, but you may hear it, and it is a good tool. So you can go in here and look at 401k, ABLE accounts. It gives you a brief description of ABLE accounts. So this just gives you a lot of and then you can look at, you can go down, scroll down alphabetically, or you can go up here and put in, if you wanted to find out about, Social Security, you can go up here, section 301, satisfaction, academic progress. So this just gives you a lot of information And so that I just wanted to do that briefly so that you can see that it is pretty easy. It is interactive. They also have phone numbers that you can call if you wanted to get more information. So I'm going to stop sharing that and go back to my
We can see it. We see the presentation now.
Okay. All right. So
Mhm.
that's basically the DB 101, which is a very, very interactive tool. And we could sit here probably all day and go over the information and what have you. So I wanted to give you just more information there. So anything that's underlined blue, you can click and it will take you to the information. There's also a really nice frequently asked questions sections, which is things that other people have come up with or things that the people that created it thought that people would ask. And that gives you a lot of information too. The glossary tab, like I said, is huge because there may be something in there that you didn't know what it was called, or you could go in there and look it up if you know what it is called and find out what it is. There also is a spot where you can get expert help. And so you can do online where you actually do like a chat room with people. And I think the first thing it does is it gives you like kind of answers your questions with whatever some of the canned information. And then I think if there's questions that you have outside of that, there is a way that you can contact somebody. So this is a tool that is highly underutilized because people just don't know about it. And so that's why I'm just kind of bringing it to your attention. And it's something that you can go in there and you can just look around. The videos are really, really nice. And the students they're all kind of animated. And so the students may enjoy watching those a little bit because it does give them information about, what is the next step outside of high school? What are my benefits and how is my work going to affect my benefits? And so that becomes a very nice issue, a very good way for individuals to be involved in the planning their next session. All right. So some of the things I just wanted to bring up too is, somebody mentioned to me about payees for SSI and SSDI and what are their responsibilities. So I just kind of did this little snippet of what the payee's responsibility. If you were becoming a payee for your student who's getting SSI, make sure or try to see if you can get a bank account that's dedicated just for that individual's Social Security to go into. Because what happens is if you put it into your account, then you've commingled your money. And then when you're doing benefits, when they're looking at how much money do you have in the bank for assets, then you have to show and kind of prove what money is yours and what money is your student or your child. Or whoever you're the payee for. So it's just easier if you keep that money separate. And once you get approved as the payee, you'll get a letter from Social Security, then you can take that to the bank and the bank will help you set up a payee account. Then you let Social Security know what that bank account is, and then the Social Security money could get deposited right into that account. So then when part of it is that you then pay for, you do have to make an application to be the payee. And I believe that the Social Security is now trying to go back to having in-face meetings with payees, because they do look at the individual and ask questions about why are you becoming the payee. They want to make sure that the person that you're becoming the payee for wants to have a payee or it needs a payee. And then they also will ask questions about, are you working? Typically family members, they don't question as much as maybe a friend or somebody that's not related, but they do vet the person a little bit to make sure that they think they're going to be a good payee. So you can get turned down, but most of the time you don't. It does take a process to become the payee, but a lot of our individuals do have payees. The payee is responsible to use the SSI to pay for the living expenses, housing, food, and the individual, and to keep the resources under $2,000. And so that's very, very important because with SSI, if you have any month that the individual has over $2,000 in assets, they're not due a check for that month. So when a Social Security does their review, if they look at the bank accounts and there was 2 months that the person had, $2,200 in the account, they're going to make the individual pay back those 2 months. So it's really, really important to make sure that there's not over $2,000. And so there is the stable account, which is something that the DB 101 does talk about and tells you about how to set it up. That it is a bank account that you can put money into that the individual can use. However, for SSI and Medicaid purposes, it's not counted as a resource. So that's a good thing that you could set up that account. That account is a Medicaid payback. So at the end of life, it can be used to pay for all of the end of life expenses, and then Medicaid may come in and try to recover some of that money to pay back some of the Medicaid expenses that they spent. That's how it's not considered a resource, is because Medicaid does still have a stake in that money. But however, when the person's still alive, they can use that money to pay for most everything. They can use it to pay rent. They can use it to buy groceries, clothing, pay for college, buy books. They can do some recreation. So it is a good way to, if somebody's working and they have money coming in, and you don't want to spend it every month down to $2,000, because then how can you ever, save up for a larger purchase? Or, like some parent told me, how many magazine subscriptions can we buy? So this is a way then you can save for possibly a future need, is a stable account. The payee is also responsible to report all other income, such as earned income, each month to Social Security. And so if the individual has a paycheck, every month you're supposed to report that to Social Security. There is a couple ways to report that. If it's just SSI, they can do it by telephone, by the the telephone reporting. If they can also do it by a mobile reporting through a website, an online app. If they have SSDI, which is a different form of Social Security, those are not reported through that. Those can be reported through a mysocialsecurity.gov account, or you can actually then mail them in, fax them in, or drop them off at the Social Security office, the copy of the paychecks. Make sure that when you turn in the paychecks that you have the person's Social Security number on them, and that you have maybe their name, or make sure that their name's on it. Because if they don't have a Social Security number on it, they do not go hunting to see whose account it goes into. There's lots of people named that have the same names, and so their Social Security is very, very much saying that they go by number, because if you have you believe it or not, there's another Tammy Disney works for Montgomery County, and my name's not very common. So if it just came in as Tammy Disney and they put my stuff in her account, it could mess her up and it could mess me up. So they go by Social Security number. Also make sure that if for SSI, that it's reported by about the 10th of the month. And so that's because SSI is the income that goes up and down depending on how much the person's earning. So they do the calculation. So the month that you earn it, the individual earns it. The next month they report it, and then the next month the check is adjusted. So if you don't report, then they're going to give you an estimate. And the estimate could be high or it could be low, which means that you may get overpaid or underpaid. A person would get, and then they may have to pay back money. So in order to avoid getting overpaid, underpaid, that's why you need to report it every month. So
Tammy, we have a few questions out there.
Okay.
We have one that's Kelly is asking, if you have guardianship of the individual, do you still have to apply to be a payee?
Yes. Guardianship is totally different. That's through the probate court. To be the payee, it has to be somebody that's basically assigned and approved by Social Security. So the payee then becomes the person that Social Security wants to deal with. So when a guardian calls and may want to change stuff, they will make sure that the payee is notified, because the payee then becomes basically in charge of the Social Security. Guardianship is so the guardian can be the payee, but they would have to go through the payee process. with Social Security. And the reason that they do that is because they realize that some guardians don't want to be the payee. There are some organizational payees out there that the person can choose, agencies that do nothing but do payeeship. And then sometimes if they live in a congregate setting, the provider possibly could become the payee. So it doesn't have to be the guardian, but it can be. But Social Security, if there's a payee, that's the person that they really want to answer questions to and have things change, because they're the ones that the individual has given, and the guardian may have to be signing saying that they want the payee to be the payee. Because you do have those legal rights, but payee and guardianship are not the same. So you would have to apply for a payeeship. Is there another question?
Yeah, yeah. So there is another question. It says, my son is still a student. He earned a few paychecks via SOCHE and the Greene County Board of DD program. I reported it and SSI deducted it out of his checks. And then she went on to say, is it possible to go back and re-report it as student income?
So yes, so this is the next section that I have up here that talks about while still in school, the student earned income exclusion. An individual can earn up to $2,290 monthly and up to $9,230 annually. And the reason it's so high is because they realize that sometimes students may work full time during the summer, and Social Security wants the kids in high school to start working, because it's a well-known fact that if they learn how to work while they're in school, where they have supports of teachers and the parents, and it becomes kind of like a, I get a little extra money. I know how to do this job. So they want people to do that. And the reason that a lot of times the parents would say, well, if it's going to reduce their SSI check, maybe they shouldn't do it because we need that money to pay the bills. So Social Security came up with the student earned income exclusion and said, while you're a student, you do not have to, you do have to report what you're earning, but they're not going to deduct it from the SSI. Now, going back and having it done retro, it's possible. So to prove that you're a student, they do want to have something from the school. A lot of times it could be even just the student ID. It could be a note, a letter from the student or the high school saying that they still are a student, and the person can actually be in college. They have to be under the age of 22, but if they're actually attending school, they can actually then still get work while they're in college too, and use the student earned income exclusion. So once you prove to Social Security that yes, the individual is under the age of 22 and still in school, still attending school, they will then not reduce their SSI. Getting it retro is something that you can certainly try, and they probably will do that because they can do retro. Like if you don't report and then you report later, they'll do retro. So my guess is they probably can go back and do retro if you can prove that while they were working, they were still in school.
That was the last of the questions for now.
So benefit summary analysis, which is what the benefits plan query, the DB 101 talks about that. And so Social Security has on file for everybody a benefits planning query. And what that does is it tells what type of benefit they're receiving and how much they're receiving. It also tells a lot of good information about where they are in the process. It says, what date did they get determined entitled to the benefit. It'll tell you when the next medical review is going to be. It will tell you if there's been an overpayment, and it will tell you if they're getting any Medicaid or Medicare. So it's very, very good information. And so they recommend that everybody kind of, and it's the information that's in their My Social Security account. And that's why Social Security wants everybody to have a My Social Security account, because there could be some errors on it. And I have gotten benefits plan queries that have had errors on it. So the errors can be corrected, but if you don't know that they're there, it's easier to correct them closer to when it happens. Because if you wait until you're getting ready to retire, or the individual is getting on another disability benefit, and they say, wait a minute, in 2022, I made this amount of money. And if Social Security doesn't have the right amount and it's 2032, you've got 10 years of trying to get back information. So it is important to look at the My Social Security account if you can, and make sure that what they're reporting, what IRS is reporting, is the correct amount. So it also gives you, I do benefits analysis for individuals where I verify the benefits that they're getting, and then write a report that says if they get a job, because sometimes somebody will say, I want to get a job, but I don't know how it's going to affect my benefits. And that's kind of where my job comes in. I verify what benefits they have, and then say, if you get a job making, $12 an hour, working 20 hours a week, this is how much you're going to have income, and this is what your SSI is going to be on average. So that's, and then how does it affect your Medicare and your Medicaid and all of those things? So that's something that I do. And I do work with OOD, which if you, all of the kids that have disabilities can be connected to OOD, Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities. It's a very good program. It is run by the state. It gives money to pay for job development for the individual. And they can actually have cases opened at the age of 16. So you can say, even if they're not going to graduate till 22, you can have a case opened early where they can, at 18, if they're, if they can. Sometimes people can graduate and they choose not to because they want to stay in school. But some kids don't know if they want to graduate, but OOD can then help them with some job development and possibly do some community-based assessment jobs where they actually go out and only do it for, a limited amount of time, just to see what they would like. Because, some people would say, I want to wash dishes, but they may not really know what all that entails. They may think, dishes at home are different than dishes when you work at a restaurant or a nursing facility. And so OD then could help them do community-based assessments where they go out and do the job for a short period of time. And then they can say, yes, this is something that I really liked, or no, this is not what I like. So they can do some job development, some job looking at what would benefit the person. And then they may decide to stay into school, or they may say, yeah, I think I might want to go ahead and get a job. And so the OOD is definitely a resource that all of the children that have disabilities should be tapping into. All right, so let's go to the next slide. All right, just reminders that everybody needs to report changes in employment and income to Social Security and to the Department of Jobs and Family Services as close to when they happen. And changes could be such as address changes, if a person gets married, if a person gets divorced, if the person gets a job, if a person loses a job, or if their income changes. If they start out making, $11 and they get a $2 an hour raise, that could affect their benefits. And it's up to the person to report to Social Security and Jobs and Family Services when they have increases and decreases in their income. Addresses are very, very key, because if something comes back from Social Security returned to sender, they will turn the benefit off, which is an eye-opening experience when somebody is expecting that money and it doesn't come. And then, so if you have an address change, make sure that they're notified. Also, Jobs and Family Services, they won't turn you off. However, if you miss your appointments, then it could result in having your Medicaid turned off or your food stamps turned off, because they are not going to try to find you. But because it's up to the individual to make sure that they have the correct information in their agencies. Keep all information that you turn in. Never turn in originals. You used to have to turn in original pay stubs, and that's no longer the case. They do accept copies. Make sure that you keep copies yourself. There's many times where people say they've turned it in, and Jobs and Family Services and Social Security says they don't have it. So, instead of having to do it, copy it more than once, just copy two at once and turn one in and keep one, because they will possibly ask for it again or could. And if you turn stuff in to the offices, make sure that you ask for a receipt, because that then proves that you actually turned it in. If you do the reporting online with the SSI, with the mobile app and the telephone, they will send you a letter stating that, thank you for reporting. This is what you said you earned, and this is what your benefit's going to be for the following month. Keep all of your letters from Social Security and Department of Jobs and Family Services and any other agencies administering public benefits. I just had somebody who had to go back like 10 years and had a letter stating the information that we were looking for. And so we were able to prove something because somebody kept letters from an agency 10 years ago that they were getting a benefit that we needed to know that if they ever got it before. And so the person had it. So I know your files are probably getting thick, but it goes a long way when you need to prove something. And then if you do talk to Social Security and Jobs and Family Services, make sure that you get a name and a date and write the date down on what you talked about, because as you talk to different individuals and sometimes things happen and you'll say, well, I talked to Miss Jones, on September the 3rd, and she told me this. It's not going to, guarantee that they're going to believe you, but if you have names, dates, and what people have told you, it goes a long way to kind of prove that you've made efforts to correct it, get it reported, and do what you're supposed to do. And then if you ever get something that you think is not correct, like if the benefit is, way too much or not enough, make sure that you contact the agency immediately so that you can find out why the benefit was too high or the benefit was too low. Because that stuff is easier to get corrected, like I said, as close to when it happens than when you have to try to do it 10 years later and they say, oh, now you owe, $3,000 back because of something that we didn't do correctly. So all right, this is just an information sheet about benefits for 2024. So the minimum wage in Ohio is $10.65 per hour. SSI for 2024 is $9.43. If you get the reduced rate, it's $628.67. And the reason people get a reduced rate is when you first apply for SSI, one of the questions that they're going to ask you is the individual paying their fair share to live in their home? And usually they have no income. So you have to answer no, which means that the parents are subsidizing them. So Social Security then says, oh, so they get the reduced rate because somebody else is helping them pay the bills. So that's the $628.67. The way that you get that increased is you can have all of the bills that you pay divide by how many people are living in the home. If the person, once they get SSI of the 628, if they can pay for their fair share out of that 628, then you can prove to Social Security that yes, they are paying their fair share. A lot of times those 628 is not enough to cover all the bills. And so you can kind of rent a room or have the person who's living with you considered a roommate, and then they pay a flat fee to live where they're living. So you would say, I'm the home that I live in, I'm this room that is his, and this is the shared common areas, and we're charging him $500 to live there. Now, so Security is going to ask you, is this the same amount that you would charge anybody else living with you? And the answer should be yes, because if you say you would charge somebody else more, they're going to say, oh, you're subsidizing the individual, and so he gets less. So you can get that raised back up to $9.43, and it's strictly up to the parents whether they want to go that route or not. Some people say I'm okay with $628, and some people are saying the $9.43 is would be helpful because of all of the bills that we have to pay. So SSDI increased by 3.2% in January. And then substantial gainful activity, and that's for somebody who's getting SSDI, which is, so the difference between SSI, and let me go over that because I have a lot of people that ask about what's the difference between SSI and SSDI. So SSI is needs-based, and that is, I don't have enough income to pay for my living expenses. So it's general tax dollars. So it's supplemental. It's not really Social Security. It is supplemental income, social supplemental income. So if the person begins working or a parent goes on Social Security themselves, then the individual can possibly draw off of their own work record or draw off of parent work record and get a different amount of Social Security. That would be truly Social Security under the Social Security disability insurance. And so it's based on how much money the person or the parents put into the system. So it could be more than the 943. It could be less than. If it's less than, you would get two benefits. You would get some SSDI and some SSI. And some people say, well, why would I want to go on SSDI if it's not going to be as much? Well, since SSI is off of general tax dollars, as soon as somebody can go on to SSDI, they want that to happen because then it frees up this general tax dollars to give other people who are getting SSI the benefit. Because the SSDI, somebody's paid into the system and the money is sitting there waiting for them to qualify or be eligible. And then it becomes SSDI then pays for most of it or all of it. And then the individual doesn't need as much SSI or needs no SSI. The other thing with SSDI is that after 2 years of being on SSDI, the individual would get Medicare. Now, Medicaid wants that to happen because Medicaid is basically general for low income, for individuals that have disabilities, that type of insurance. Medicare is because you're getting Social Security, and that's a totally different bank of money. It is something that an individual who gets SSDI can get after they have it for 2 years. So they become eligible for Medicare. So there is a lot of SSI and SSDI, they look alike, they sound alike, but they're not alike. And there's different rules for both of them. So for SSI, because it is needs-based and they go on income. So if a child applies before the age of 18, they go on what the family income is. And a lot of times the family income would be too much for them to qualify. But once they turn 18, then SSI looks at only the individual's income. So the income becomes easier for them to qualify because a lot of times the individual has no income or they have a little bit of income because they're working, but typically not working full time. So then so you have to apply at least the day after, the month after the individual turns 18, and you should have them apply at least before they turn 22. And the reason that is because when they're 18 to 22, then you can say that, yes, they got disability determined as what they can no longer a child. But then also when the parent retires, they'll look at, did they have their disability determined before the age of 22? And if you wait until they're 26, then it becomes a little harder to prove that, yes, the disability happened before the age of 22. So make sure that you're applying before the age of 22, if at all possible, so that you can, so that they can be eligible for getting off of a parent work record, or, when the parent goes on Social Security. It just becomes very, very important. All right. So the substantial gainful activity that you can earn is $1,550 per month, and that's basically what SSDI says. If you can make that much money and you're getting SSDI, then you're not considered, your disability is not affecting your ability to pay your bills, and they will stop your SSDI. Now, they do give you a trial work period, which is 9 months, and that to trigger that, it's $1,110 per month. And so after your 9 months of trial work period, then they look at this substantial gainful activity. And the reason they give you a trial work period is because they want individuals to try to work full time, make as much money as you can, do it for several months, see if it's possible. And if it's not, then basically at the end of the 9 months, If you go under SGA again, your Social Security continues. If you go over SGA after the 9 months, there are a couple other work incentives in order to help get your Social Security check back. But if you are working over SGA, then basically they're saying that that's enough to pay your bills. The personal needs allowance for 2024 is $1,839. And that's if you have a long-term waiver or you're going on Medicaid buy-in for workers with disabilities. That's how much money you can have or you can earn, and then also with your unearned income before you would have to pay a patient liability or then when the Medicaid buy-in for workers with disabilities, you could then look at that and have them turn it into a Medicare premium, which you pay every month. The Medicaid buy-in for workers with disabilities is a great program because individuals that work, especially if they're getting some SSI, SSDI, they possibly could have more than $1,839 a month in income. So if they make over that, then they're not eligible for Medicaid anymore. But if they go, or they would have to pay a patient liability if they have a long-term waiver. But if they do the Medicaid buy-in for workers with disabilities, they can have a lot of income and have their, instead of paying a patient liability, it could be changed to a smaller premium. And right now, the most premium I've ever seen anybody have to pay was about $120. And that's because they were making like $3,000 a month in income. So if they can have a lot of income and then pay a little bit of money, probably average in that we probably have 40 people that have Medicaid buy-ins, and they probably average about $40 a month of premiums. So, and Medicaid wasn't collecting the premiums for probably about 7 years. They are now collecting the Medicaid buy-in for workers with disabilities premiums. So if they get assessed a premium and it's not paid, it will turn their Medicaid off. So be careful, or make sure that people are paying those premiums as they get them. The other good thing about the Medicaid buy-in for workers with disabilities, the asset limit is not $2,000. It's $14,848. And that's because they're no longer on SSI because they probably have too much income to be on SSI. But they also know that if individuals that work, they want to save more money. And so they allow them to have a much higher asset limit. Now, if they were to stop working, then the asset limit can go back to $2,000. But JFS gives you about 6 months to try to find another job. Because most people, if they stop working or they stop a job or get laid off, people look for another job. So once you get another job, you can then stay on the Medicaid buy-in for workers with disabilities.
There's 2 questions out there, Tammy.
Okay.
The first one is, my son will be turning 18 in October. We will be filling out forms for SSI in November. He will be deferring his diploma and will be staying in school to the age of 22. We will be getting guardianship as well. I haven't received a straight answer, so hopefully you can help me. Will my son get food assistance, food stamps as well when he files for SSI?
So I believe for food assistance, they have to be 22. So unless they're not living with the family. If they're living on their own, then of course they would be considered their own household. But and they don't even have to be in school. I think it's the age of 22 before a person living in a family can then claim that they are their own household. So it is 22.
And then let's see. Hold on, let me see here. It jumped on me. I guess this goes up a little bit. Heather asked if they are a student, do they get a reduced rate? I'm trying to think which slide that went to.
So the reduced rate for the SSI, the full rate's $943. The reduced rate is the $628.67, I think it was. So if they're a student, they possibly will get the reduced rate. Like I said, because the first thing they're going to ask is, are they paying their fair share? So if they have no income, or if you have to say no, they don't have any money. And so typically they will give them the reduced rate. But if they're a student and then once they get the SSI, and then you can say, yes, now they have money to pay, and their SSI is more than what they need to pay. He's paying $500 in order to live in our home. Then Social Security would look at that and say, yes, he is now paying his fair. They call it a flat rate. He's paying a flat rate. And some people are like, well, I say, look at it like he's a roommate where he's paying he's paying $500 to live there, and he has access to his room, which is basically his private area. And then he has access to the bathroom, the kitchen. So basically he's paying to live in your home. And then once you can show that to Social Security, if you need to, I have a generic form. It's nothing legal, that I have given to other parents that have used it. And you just fill it out, sign it. He signs it saying how much you're charging. And we turn that into Social Security. They look at it and say, okay, yes, now they're paying their fair share, their flat rate, and we will raise them up to the higher rate. So it's possible to be a student and get the higher rate, yes.
The next question is, my son already has health insurance. He was automatically enrolled in Medicaid upon receiving SSI. I do not want the Medicaid health insurance. Is there really any benefit to keeping it?
Yes, there is benefits to keeping it. So in the state of Ohio, SSI, now if you are eligible for SSI, you're eligible for Medicaid. And Medicaid is a great program, and it can be used as kind of like a supplemental. So if he has private insurance through parent work or is paying private insurance, that's the primary. So you go to the doctor, the bill's $100 or $200. It's $100 to make it easy. So your insurance company may say, we're only going to pay 80% of it. So they're going to pay $80, and then he has to pay $20. If he has Medicaid and the provider takes Medicaid, then Medicaid will pay that $20. So you can use it as a supplemental to cover some of the expenses that a private insurance is not going to pay. So it is a good program. If you don't want to use it, then if you go to the doctor, you don't have to tell them that he has Medicaid. You'll just have to pay whatever the insurance doesn't pay, all of the deductibles and the copays that insurance doesn't pay. But if you want to, you can use Medicaid, and Medicaid would then cover those costs. So it would be probably beneficial for you to use the Medicaid.
That's it for the questions so far.
Okay. So the last thing, I talk about the stable account. So with Medicaid and SSI, the $2,000 limit becomes an issue sometimes. And so the stable account is a very good online account that the state of Ohio has opened. It's actually a state law and a federal law that says that an individual whose disability happens before the age of 26 can open up this account, put money into it, and then Social Security for SSI and for Medicaid, they want to see what's in there, but they can't count it because it's a needs-based. It's a needs-based because it's in the stable account. The stable account is a Medicaid payback, like I said, and that's what keeps it from being an asset, is because it's the individual's money while they're alive. However, when they should pass, once all the final bills are paid, Medicaid could come in and recover. And that's why I tell people, spend your stable account. I have somebody right now who has like $60,000 in their stable account. And I tell him all the time, I says, you need new shoes, you need a new coat, but he's very frugal and he wants to save his money. And so, but so it's not really to be used to, I guess, as a savings account, because at the end of life, it's Medicaid's going to get the money. So use it. It's supposed to make your life better. So you'll be able to pay for things, have extras, so don't just put the money in and don't spend it. You can put $18,000 per calendar year into the stable account, and anybody can put that in, a parent, neighbor, the individual themselves. And then they can also put another $14,580 into their work income into the stable account. And they added the work income because people were putting in 18,000, their parents were putting in 18,000, and then the individuals were working and had income, and they're like, well, what do we do with this? And so they added that 14,580 and said, you can now put that into the stable account too. We have some people that put a lot of their money into the stable account, and then they use their stable account to pay their bills. It is an online bank account. It's not no brick and mortar bank to go to, but you can have a debit card that's empty, and you would preload it. So if somebody needed to go to the store and buy a winter coat, you can get online, move the money from the bank account onto the stable account, and then they go to the store and buy the coat and use it at point of sale purchase. The whole point of the stable account is that you can't just cash the money out. So you can't go to an ATM and cash the money out, but you can spend it, and it usually goes from the stable account right to whoever you owe. So you want to pay your cable bill, you then can set it up to where the stable account pays the cable bill every month. You want to pay your phone, you can set it up to where the stable account pays your phone every month. And so it becomes a very nice way of paying your bills. The opening the stable account is it is a little bit of a process, but they do have dedicated staff that that can answer questions that from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. They can, you're answering the questions and you don't know how to answer them. You can call them and say, hey, what do they mean by this? Or we have this. Is that what they're talking about? So use that online the stable account, the online application, but you can get help in order to open that account. The Medicaid Consumer Hotline is if you have issues with Medicaid, something's not being paid, you have a question, your benefits getting cut off and you don't know why, you can call that 1-800 Medicaid hotline, 1-800-324-8680, and somebody then would answer your questions. The Medicare Consumer Hotline is the same thing. There's dedicated staff that answer questions about Medicare. If you have Medicare right now or getting ready soon, is going to be open enrollment. I think it's like October 7th. So it's coming up, open enrollment. And if an individual has Medicare, they recommend that you call somebody to get some help, making sure that what you have is going to be covering all of the benefits or the things that the individual needs. The OSHIP, the OSHIIP, the Ohio Senior Health Insurance Information Program, is a program that's paid for by Medicare, and there's staff on the phone that you can call and say, hey, this is my doctor, this is my medicine, these are the procedures I think I'm going to need next year. Can you tell me which medical insurances that I could possibly get that will cover all of those? And so that becomes huge because, as you know, insurance companies change all the time what they're going to pay. And they may cover something one year and then the next year they decide they're not going to cover it. So we recommend that individuals with the OSHIP basically call them. There are some other agencies out there, like there's one over in there's senior solutions, and then that you can go to, and they usually can do face-to-faces and say, what do we need paid for? So we recommend that individuals that have Medicare do that every year. And then there's the State of Ohio Medicaid Call Center. And that's if you get a Medicaid renewal and you need to do that, or you don't get a Medicaid renewal and they tell you need to do one, you can do it by telephone. And that's kind of a nice way to do that, because if you have questions about the questions that you're having to answer and you have somebody on the phone, you can actually talk to them and say, what do they mean by that? And if you get an explanation, you might be able to answer the question appropriately. I also list a few other resources. The Social Security Red Book. The Red Book is like a list of the disabilities that are presumptive. There are some disabilities that are presumptive. Individuals that have Down syndrome, basically that's a presumptive disability. It means that Social Security doesn't really, they go through the application process, but they typically will get approved. anybody that has end-stage renal failure or any type of cancer that possibly could be the end of life. Those individuals get approved right away. So and then there are several others that so if you wanted to see what those are, you can look at the Red Book. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, there's the website for that. Then there's the Ohio Medicaid, which is basically local or state of Ohio. There's that website for that. And then the Disability Benefits 101, get on it, use it. It is a very good interactive program, and it is something that you can probably get your students involved so that they can be involved in their own benefits. There's a Legal Aid Society of Greater Cincinnati, and that's if you have an issue that you think you might need a lawyer, and they do pro bono work, but you have to qualify. But I give that as in the Legal Aid Center of Cincinnati. They do Montgomery, Greene, and Warren counties. So those are the phone numbers for them. So if somebody applies for SSI and they don't get approved and you're not sure why, you can see if you can get the Ohio Legal Aid involved so that they can represent you, because you do have the right, if you do get denied, to have a representation, a lawyer. And that's kind of what they do. So that's my presentation. I think I'm pretty close.
Yeah, there is one question, one more question that came in. Is there someone that can help parents file for SSI paperwork? Once all the SSI paperwork is submitted, oops, it jumped. Hold on. How long does it take to get approved?
So I am actually doing a program, and I've been doing it for about, I think, 3 years now. It's called the Vulnerable Population Application Program, VPAP. And Social Security actually approached me and said, hey, can you help? Because SSI applications were way down, especially during COVID. And so I was able to work with this program. So I am able to do that. And I have 2 other people in my agency that do it also. So yes, you do have some ability to get some help. I think my phone number is 937-344-4510. You can call me. What I do is I'm just a transcribe. So I'm not going to guarantee anything other than I'm going to help get the application turned in and get all of the documents that you need or that you give me to turn in. So I basically am going to be a pass-through. Now, I'm going to use my knowledge on how to word things. I'm going to probably ask questions that you may not have thought of to try to show on the application what is it about the individual's disability. Especially at 18, they're looking at what's keeping the person from working. So it's not just, I have a disability, it's my disability is, because that's what the doctors determine. What Social Security is determining is, since you have the disability that the doctor said you had, what about that disability keeps you from being able to work, making substantial gainful activity? And so they're looking at the ETRs and the OTs, the PTs, the psychs, the medical, all of the assessments that individuals could have. Those are all key. So I can give you information about what documents you would be best to turn in. And then I can send them right to a person at Social Security that does nothing but work for the VPAP. So it doesn't just go to Social Security waiting for somebody to take care of it. It goes right to somebody who's going to start working on it immediately. And then I actually then get a release signed by you guys, by the individual, because they're 18 now. Unless you're a guardian, they get to sign it. And then Social Security then will give me information, so I can actually send an email or make a phone call and say, hey, where is this process? Where is the application in process? And they will talk to me and let me know. We're waiting on something from the doctor. We're waiting for something from the school. It's basically OOD does the determinations, and we're waiting on, it's in process, but it hasn't been approved yet. Sometimes it's approved. Now, how long does it take? So somebody who has a presumptive disability, it should probably happen quickly, probably within a month. Individuals that have, disabilities that basically are, we know for a fact they're not going to be able to work. Those happen soon. So what if an individual has already worked or is working? Those become a little more difficult because then they're looking at, okay, tell us, they're working, what supports are they getting at work? What are the tasks that they can't do? What are the, and then they look at that to say, so sometimes that takes a little bit longer. They may send something to the employer saying, give us more information about what the person's doing on the job. So it can take, 3-4 months, probably about the longest with the VPAP. And that's why going through the VPAP is very, very important, because there's a dedicated staff and I have access to her in order to move it along. So
What
you
does
can
VPAP stand for?
Vulnerable Population Application Program. And Social Security came up with this and said, because during the pandemic, SSI applications were down 500%. And so they realized, hey, this online application is too hard. It's too difficult. It's even difficult for me. And I do them. I probably have done maybe 30. And everybody's gotten approved except for one person, and he was making over SGA. So it's kind of hard to say you can't make over SGA when you're actually doing it. But everybody else has been approved. But there is no guarantees. I have no guarantees, but I can at least guide you guys to what to turn in. And like I said, I send it right to Social Security, right to the person that I deal with.
And there was a question out there, do you help other counties? Like one mentioned Butler County. Do you help people from other counties?
I do not, but there typically may be somebody in that county that does it. I know, Warren County has Latasha Owiner, and then Greene County has somebody, but I'm not sure if she does, I think she does some benefits analysis and that kind of stuff. But so contact your county board. There very well could be somebody that helps with that.
I added in the chat, I added the emails for Latasha and Cindy Nava is the Greene County. And then I added Elizabeth Grove, who is with the Butler County. If they don't do it, they will direct you to who. And then someone asked if VPAP, if it costs anything.
It does not cost.
No cost. Okay. I think we got through all the questions, Tammy. I want to thank you. I know we're about out of time, but I want to thank everybody for Tammy, for you presenting. It's a lot of information. I appreciate everything that you covered. If anybody has any questions, once this session closes and they didn't get their question answered, feel free to email me, or you can email Tammy. Tammy, I think, can you put your email in the chat box? Can you, do you have it there?
It's just tdisney@mcbdds.org. And then I'll give you my phone number too.
And I put my phone or my email in there too. I think most people have it, but I put mine in there too. And then, yeah, if you want to include your phone number, while she's typing that, I did want to, there was a link there on how to get a hold of the copy of her presentation. We have it in our Google Salt drive. And also next week, to continue our look into the transition program, or the transition, process for individuals with disabilities, on Tuesday, 9/17 from 6 to 7:30, we'll be talking about Project Life and Project Search, as in the next step. Let's see, we had one out here. Can we use Tammy, if not in Montgomery County, or is it best to use our own county's contact? And I believe you said to reach out to your own county. Is that correct?
Yes.
And if you're not sure who that contact would be, reach out to your county board, or if you need to find that county board or more information, you can reach out to Tammy, because I think you know everybody in the Southwest Ohio or surrounding area, so she can definitely get you connected with the right person.
Absolutely.
Is there any other questions before we close the session? I think we got through all the questions. We're just looking through here. If you think of a question, again, if you think of something following this session, please feel free to reach out and ask via email. Thank you, Tammy, again, for going over everything. And it was a lot of helpful information. It's always a lot of information, especially if you're
Absolutely.
hearing it for the first time. It's a lot when you're hearing it for the 10th time, like me. But things always change. Things are always
Absolutely.
changing. Numbers change, contacts change, but I appreciate you giving us where we're at right now and all the information that's currently available to us right now.
Absolutely.
So thank you. And thank you everybody for attending. And we will have this recorded. It'll be on YouTube in about 2 days. So check
Thank
our
you.
SALT YouTube out. So thank you all for joining us.